Hey there, welcome to Murder Dictionary Podcast. I'm Brianna. That's Courtney.
Hello.
We're back.
We're here.
We made it. We're alive. That's the thing. 2020 is trying to kill me, but I'm alive. So here we are.
It's taken a lot out of everyone, it seems.
I don't think I know anybody that's had a great 2020 so far, but yeah, it's particularly bad. So, but we're here until further notice.
Right? Until something else happens.
So if you want to get updates about new episodes, since we've had a little bit of a sporadic schedule, definitely follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We'll try and keep you updated there. We also have some memes, breaking news, all the conspiracy theories that Courtney comes up with about disappearances in Malibu and whatever cases and breaking news is going on.
Stop talking. That's not a conspiracy. This is happening.
It's true. It's true. I don't mean to be dismissive, but it is, you definitely get your like charts and your whiteboards out whenever we talk about the Malibu disappearances. That's all it is. Don't give me the evil eye.
Many years from now, they're going to talk about like, she
How
was
Courtney
onto something.
solved it.
Telling you.
So if you want all of those updates, definitely follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you want to read up more about the stories that we cover every week, we always put links to our resources for our research into the show notes. So definitely head over to those links, click on them, and check out a little bit more info about the stuff that we're discussing. If you want some merch, we've got t-shirts, phone cases, towels in the middle of winter because you need those for the beach, tote bags, stuff like that, all on our Threadless. And if you want access to bonus episodes, early release episodes, ad-free episodes, we have those on our Patreon. So that's patreon.com/Murder Dictionary Podcast. And we have a few new people on our Patreon. So we wanted to say thank you to Candace, Holly, Anna, Sabrina, and Casey or Cassie, not sure. I think it's Casey. So thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
We appreciate you being on our Patreon. We hope you enjoy those extra content, extra bonus episodes. And if you want more of those, then head over to our Patreon. I think that's pretty much it for me.
I think that's pretty much it. I don't have much to contribute other than there's some good television right now.
Yeah.
There's that No One Saw a Thing about Skidmore, Missouri, and that is on Dot Club app is what I've been using with my free trial. McMillions, that's where I'm going. I can't stop.
The
I'm
new
excited.
Ted Bundy basic bitch that he is. That we need 10 more documentaries about him.
There was a Dateline that was on last Friday that was called Where Are the Children? And it is the hottest take on Reddit and the internet currently about the missing children, Tylee and JJ. It's actually on Dateline as a podcast as well. If you can't find the Dateline episode, Dateline has their episodes as a podcast.
I'm going to have to check that out because I need to get up to date on the newest because I'm not following that story closely enough.
Yeah, it's just Keith talking to you.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I know we've got a little bit of a sporadic, weird schedule lately. Like I mentioned, 2020 is trying to kill me. So I don't want to take up too much time. You know, I like to get into the actual case that we cover like within the first few minutes of the show. But just so you know, I'm having some health issues again. Nothing new there. I've been to the ER. I've been to the urgent care. I've got a biopsy. I've got all this shit all within the last 2 months. So I'm having surgery again. I don't have a date set, but it's coming.
You're going to get through it.
So,
and be just fine right back here.
Yeah. So we don't really know exactly what our schedule is going to be like. But like I said, we'll keep you updated. I'll let you know when I know. And, you know, hopefully I survive.
You will survive.
With everything I've been through, like it's that joke of just like, who's going to survive the apocalypse? It's like Cher and cockroaches. I feel like I'm going to be there too with everything that I've been through.
That's way more positive than I would be. So you've got me there.
So yeah, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to let you guys know we've got weird scheduling stuff. It's not on purpose. I'm just sick, always sick.
Well,
and I'm doing my best to keep up.
we've also each got full-time jobs.
Yeah.
And, we have lives. We have illnesses. Things happen.
Yeah, I know. Both of us have some health issues. So
Right?
it is what it is. We're doing our best. But you know what? It's a free podcast. So, it's just nice when we can put out episodes, and hopefully we will get to a place where we can do every single week. But until then, until I can get back on my feet, it is what it is. We'll just keep you posted. It's the best I can do. I hope that's okay.
That's our minute of us expressing our guilt for not releasing things on time, all the time.
Feel so awful. You have no idea the kind of guilt that I have when I have to cancel and I just don't have it in me to record. But just know I feel bad, but I'm doing my best. So with all that said, tonight's case is actually really special to us.
Very special.
It sounds weird, and I feel bad. I always feel bad about things.
Everything.
Like, it's everything in life. But this one is a case that was the first case that Courtney and I ever talked about when you and I realized that we are both into true crime. This was our gateway drug to friendship.
We were in a hallway.
Yeah.
Just in a hallway.
Bonding
through.
over this case.
Yeah. Just realized, I just made this comment in a conversation where everyone's going to look at me like, what are you talking about? We all.
And I was like, crime. I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm picking up what you're throwing down.
This girl looks at me and knows
yep.
what I'm talking about and is shocked that I am speaking these words. And I was equally as shocked. And it was just, hey, I got a true crime podcast. And now I'm, okay, cool. Let's do this.
The rest is history.
It's history, as they say. So, yeah.
So this is our formative friendship case. And it's the case of Mia Zapata of the Gits. So we're still on letter M for music. And so this is Mia Zapata, who was the front woman for the band, the Gits. And we can dive into her story.
She's like, for music, it would be like the opposite of a Carlo Gesualdo, if you will.
Right.
Emotion, but not quite the same.
Right. Totally different.
A little different.
So Mia Catherine Zapata was born August 25th, 1965, and grew up in an upper middle class suburb of Louisville, Kentucky. Her parents were media executives who worked in television. So I think she had a little bit of exposure to the entertainment industry when she was young. Maybe not music, but there's something there, Maybe
it's country music TV or some sort of evangelical television because
Maybe.
It's Louisville, Kentucky.
Right?
Local news, local TV.
Right.
They're Huell-Hauser. I'm not sure.
When she was young, she was extremely reserved and quiet. So most people recall her being a very shy child. She was also extremely sweet, but she had this fighting spirit and a very creative mind. She learned to play guitar and piano by age 9, then took up singing when she discovered that she had this very bluesy, soulful voice. And a lot of people comment about it, like looking at her, they just didn't think that voice was going to come out of her. I hear people talk about her the way that they talk about Amy Winehouse, where here's this little scrawny girl. She walks up, opens her mouth, and all of a sudden this belting, bluesy, soulful, emotional voice comes out. And that was Mia's voice.
Yes. Small package.
Exactly. She really liked punk rock, but she also loved Bessie Smith, Billie Holiday, Ray Charles, Hank Williams, and Sam Cooke. Outwardly, her presentation was very kind of like grungy punk rock, but the things that she listened to were very different from that. She had both influences, clearly. Her parents divorced, and her father moved to the Pacific Northwest when she was a child, but she channeled her emotions into writing and creating art. It seemed like a changing point for her. She was very affected by the divorce, but she wanted to use it to create things. Drummer Steve Moriarty said, quote, "One of the things she told me was how cathartic it could be to express yourself honestly through art, and that it was okay to express powerful emotions in songs." It seemed like that was her outlet, especially for being so shy and reserved. She was able to actually talk about her feelings when she was singing.
I always think that's interesting, that people feel like they're the only one in a room in front of 1,000 people.
Yeah.
Very, very bizarre.
Like it's just nobody could know how I feel right now. And yeah.
But now everyone knows how I feel right now.
But this is the only way that I can get it out and tell everyone that I'm feeling that.
Yeah.
She grew up in a very affluent world. She went to private school and she hung out at country clubs and stuff. I mean, she was with, Richie Riches. Mia felt extremely uncomfortable amongst her wealthy peers, and eventually she openly rejected material superficiality. She had seen her peers openly torment and look down upon those who had less privilege, and she was appalled that people could be so cruel. It deeply affected her when she saw this kind of bullying, especially classism and stuff like that.
Definitely had an issue with classism.
Yeah. As she got older, she would distance herself from her background, especially the affluent part of it. And often she insisted on going without so that she could live as minimally as possible. Despite her preppy, affluent roots, by her teens and 20s, she took on a more casual and grimy aesthetic that elevated the typical grunge uniform to like this almost homeless level, to be honest.
Totally knew these people.
Yes, absolutely.
In the 90s specifically. But this sometimes goes into a little further into the 2000s as well. But there's definitely, I can smell this, I can see this, I can hear this. All of it, this anger, this darkness quality. There's a lot of dreadlocks around.
Oh, definitely.
There's a lot of piercings. What else am I looking at?
Flannel.
Flannel, thank you.
Denim, but not in one piece.
No. Doc Martens.
Yeah.
It's
layers.
Basically, yeah, Delia's. It's like what they're wearing now, these kids. But it was definitely, she took it to another level. Because, yeah, when you see a lot of the pictures and it's not even grunge. It's like another level of grunge.
Right. It's not necessarily even crust punk or anything like that, but it's somewhere in between. And it is a very direct response to what she grew up with, because she wanted for nothing when she grew up and was very preppy. And by the time she was able to make a little bit more of her own decisions, be a teenager or in her 20s, she was like, I want to do the complete opposite. So it wasn't just coming from a place of like, oh, well, everybody else is dressing casual, so that's what I want to dress like. She was doing it as a very kind of protesting rejection of the societal norm that she had grown up with, right? I mean, that's what it seemed like to me.
More than likely, she found Kentucky boring as well.
Well, that too.
So let's spice up our life.
You know what I find is that it's also easier to kind of find your tribe, because you're just like, well, look, there's a bunch of people wearing flannel. That's my 90s crew. You know what I mean?
Those are my friends.
Right. So like when I see another person that has different colored hair, I'm like, oh, you're my people.
Right.
You know, like, oh, you look at your piercings. You're my people, you know? So I think for her, it was like, it was a rejection. It was a way of her to find her people. It was just kind of a way of forming a new family, a new set of friends that weren't as materialistic.
Sea of Dickies.
Yes, because she didn't want to be associated with people that really gave a fuck about those things, that were into whatever the current fashion was and spending a ton of money, you know?
Yeah.
After high school, Mia moved to Ohio to go to college at Antioch, and she began to come out of her shell a bit more. Not only was she creating more art with her constant painting, drawing, and sculpture, but she also had increased courage to write songs and sing more. Friends recall that she would not only take every opportunity to jump on stage, but she was also known to jump up on tables and just start belting out songs at parties. So she didn't even really need an invitation to start performing. You're making a face that I think I know what you're thinking, because this kind of sounds annoying, but
I just
find
wish
it-
I could have been at this party to look at you and go, what the hell is this bitch doing? Do you see this? Does anyone else see this? This homeless girl is on a table singing hardcore punk songs that she's written.
No, and that's the thing.
These are just Bessie
She's
Smith
like,
songs.
yeah, bluesy. She's like belting out the blues. This punk just jumped on the table and just swung her dreads around and started singing, you know, old blues songs.
Yeah.
I think that to me would just be like, it would give me life. I'd be like, yes, bitch, slay. Just do it.
I'm sure in the moment I would remove the joint and absolutely get into this whole thing. But when retold, it sounds a little, what in the hell?
Depending on the person, I think there is a part of me that would think, oh, she just wants attention and blah, blah, blah. But just knowing more about Mia and about her friend group and about how they're all kind of artists, they're all kind of creatives. There's a lot of people in this sort of scene that are in bands. So it was kind of like, you know, that guy that always pulls out a guitar at a party.
Yes, that one is.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, we all know that
This
guy.
was Mia's version. And we always give the guy with the guitar a pass.
I don't. I remember this guy playing that song, the I Want to Fly Away by Lenny Kravitz for probably 2.5 hours straight at a Sun Valley house party.
Oh, Lord.
And I'll never let this guy get away with that. So that's why I'm kind of holding her accountable, I think. Somebody has to be the cops here.
There's something about this to me that I find really endearing.
Well,
I just like this kind of spontaneity of just like, oh yeah, I'm putting myself out there. Like, I don't have the balls to do that. I admire when people do, you know?
We've spent too much time. This is why people don't like us. Sorry, me. But yeah, we've spent too much time on this.
But yeah, so she was just coming out of her shell. Before, she was really scared to sing and was really shy. And even though she knew she had a good voice, now at this point, she's finally at the place where she's like, I'm not scared of shit. I'm jumping on tables. I'm taking every stage possible and showing everybody what I got. So it was a big turning point for her. The first time that bassist Matt Dresner ever heard Mia sing, it was in the spring of 1986 at an open mic event on the campus of Antioch College, where they both went to school. He says, quote, "A bunch of students took turns getting up on stage and played their songs. To me, everything sounded like Joan Baez or Fish. Then there was Mia. I don't remember what song she opened with, maybe Bessie Smith, maybe something she wrote. Whatever it was, I was transfixed and overcome. I cried. It was raw, honest, to the bone and from the heart. No music or musician had ever affected me like she did that night."
That's impressive.
Right? So I don't know. There's something about that to me that's just like, oh, you know, I probably would have really enjoyed it.
I feel like we can be both things. Because I feel the same way. I'm like, oh, that's precious. You know,
Right.
That's, so endearing. Lovely. Nice. But then I'm also like, what in the hell is going on at this party? So anyway.
In the fall of 1986, bassist Matt Dresner decided that he wanted to form a band. So he recruited guitarist Andy Kessler. Within a week, they convinced jazzy melodrummer Steve Moriarty to take on a heavier project, and soulful singer Mia Zapata fronted the band. They called themselves the Gits after a joke in a Monty Python sketch, and they made alternative music with a slightly punk feel. It sounds kind of dated, like it sounds very grungy now, like what we put in little pigeonhole of grunge, just to kind of describe what it's like. But at the time, people considered it punk. People assume that since Mia could get up and sing at parties or front a punk band, that she could be a very tough girl off stage. It was often very surprising to people how soft-spoken, shy, and kind-hearted she was.
It is like Jekyll and Hyde.
Really, she had these very two distinct sides of her personality. there's something to be said for artists and performers that they step into this different person. Beyonce has Sasha Fierce.
Yes.
Like, you know,
does.
Mariah Carey has Mimi.
Yeah.
People become someone else. So that was what Mia did. She was very shy, reserved, but this was her way to come out of her shell, was to just become this punk rock front woman that was in your face and really confident. So people thought she was like that off stage, and that wasn't the case.
This is her Erica Jane.
Exactly. The way that I actually got into listening to podcasts was by getting completely addicted to Audible. Audible was totally my gateway to podcasts, and I couldn't get through my commute or errands or really even work without Michael Connelly's Bosch detective thrillers in my earbuds. As much as I enjoy podcasts, there's just nothing like taking a deep dive into a case with audiobooks like I'll Be Gone in the Dark or Devil in the White City, or really any of the thousands of other titles that Audible has to choose from. Their app has more content than ever now that they have tons of Audible originals, podcasts, daily news from outlets like New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, and tons more to explore. We're extremely excited to partner with Audible to offer our listeners a 30-day free trial by going to audible.com/mdpod. So if you want to check out the tons of podcasts, Audible originals, and more true crime audiobooks than you could listen to in a lifetime, head to audible.com/mdpod to get 30 days for free.
Play the lottery with Jackpocket. What's Jackpocket? Jackpocket is the lottery app that lets you play New Jersey lottery games right on your phone. People have won over $5 million playing the lottery on Jackpocket. Download Jackpocket and get a free Mega Millions ticket using promo code CASH. Jackpocket. Play the New Jersey lottery on your phone. Must be 18 or older to play. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Please visit jackpocket.com/TOS for full terms of service.
In 1989, they decided that if they wanted to have more opportunity in the music industry, they should head to a bigger city. And they wanted to head as far west as possible. So the Gits moved to Seattle, where they had heard that there was a music scene developing. And boy, were they right.
Such a good move.
Timing is everything, really. So a lot of things are just luck, and they happened to just go there at the right time. They were certainly smart to choose Seattle, since, as Spin magazine had put it, quote, Seattle is currently to the rock and roll world what Bethlehem was to Christianity. It was just perfect. Beyond just the professional opportunities, Mia was able to reunite with her father in Seattle, and they got much closer during this time, since they weren't necessarily estranged, but there was a huge distance between them since the divorce. She got a job as a waitress at the Frontier Room, which was this diner/dive bar. People described it as a greasy spoon, if that helps.
I love diner food.
Yeah. Her band members would always hang out at her work because they could get very cheap food or even free food there, since they could really barely afford to support themselves. So they were always hanging out there. Mia made the choice to live hand to mouth like her bandmates, instead of telling her parents that she was struggling and accepting their eager offers to help support her financially. If she wanted to, she could have gotten help.
Well, she also needs punk street cred. And you can't be Gloria Vanderbilt, right? And like poor little rich girl. And at this time, we can do it today. Fronting the Gits, right?
Yeah.
You've got to be living in Seattle with no shoes.
Holes in every piece of clothing. Yeah. It is, I know that it's an aesthetic, but for me, there's something about Mia that seems so incredibly genuine that I think she was just like, well, I don't want to have an upper hand that my friends don't. I don't want them to feel like I have more than them and that, I don't know. Like, I just think she wanted to make sure that she was a peer, like a true peer.
I feel like there's also, she has like a true commitment to the art and to the authenticity of their experience that creates the sound of their music.
Right. If they're going to be struggling and this is going to
Yes.
come from, I'm going to write about struggling and what I'm going through, we've all got to be in this together.
This
No
will
matter
make us-
where my background is, we're all together.
This will make us better in the long run.
Right. Within a few months of being in Seattle, the Gits members all moved into one rundown house that they affectionately called the Rat House. They tried to break into the local music scene, but they didn't have many local connections because they were complete outsiders. So they really had to hustle to convince venues and promoters to give them a shot. There's this very distinct thing about the Seattle scene, and especially at this time, not so much anymore, but back in that period of time, bands used to travel up the West Coast or do their whole tour thing. You're going in basically a line that's zigzagging all over America, right? But a lot of bands would stop at San Francisco and they wouldn't go up to Seattle because there was kind of this long wasteland in between. Portland wasn't as big as it is now. So at this point, Seattle was a very separate sort of music scene. Outside bands weren't coming in. They had to develop their own music scene, fill up their own venues. So it was very much like we're this community, and they didn't really let a lot of outsiders in. You had to work really hard to get your name out there. So at the time, it was really hard for them to break into that because they had no friends. They weren't part of the network, Like if you listen to some of the background of Nirvana, it's just like all these bands knew each other.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, I'm a roadie for the Melvins. I help them load their gear. Oh, well, I have this band. Okay, now I'm going to open for them. Okay, they've got this gig over here. I'm going to help them with that. They all played the same gigs together. They all did the same tours together because there was this very separate Seattle scene because no outside bands were coming in. But the Gits had a hard time breaking into that.
It's always interesting to me, too, how but we're all in the same bands. They all just rotated through. Temple of the Dog, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden. Like, it's all the
just
same
rotating,
shit.
revolving door of
So how can you break into that?
members, right.
How do you break in when Eddie Vedder is the doorman?
Yeah, people forget that Nirvana had like 7 different drummers before Dave Grohl.
Who's Pat Smear? Who's
Right.
that guy? Right? Like, what are you talking
Where'd you
about?
come from?
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah.
Fucking germs.
And then also at this time, you're having all these other people from Kentucky, whatever, descending on this town.
Right.
So then you're really like locking the door.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
It made it very difficult because they were used to forming this scene on their own. And once everybody discovered, oh, there's a scene in Seattle, of course people are coming from outside and nobody trusts outsiders. And that's what the Gits were coming into during this time. So because of that, they also formed their own little kind of group of outsiders, other people that were transplants in Seattle. They reunited with old college friends from Ohio, and Mia pushed them to form their own band, which would eventually become the band 7 Year Bitch. The Gits were extremely supportive of 7 Year Bitch when they were starting out, and they even offered up their own equipment and rehearsal space so that they could learn and practice. As their time in Seattle went on, the Gits band members became extremely close, and they developed many close friendships within other bands in the local music scene over time. Guitarist Andy Kessler said, quote, "I considered Mia my best friend. She was really kind-hearted and very empathetic. It may have seemed to other people like she was not necessarily that way, but if you knew her then, she was really like that." Mia's entire life revolved around music and the local music scene. She always carried a microphone and Gits mixtapes with her so that she could sing or hand out her music at any time. The Gits played many music venues down the West Coast, and they opened up for bands like Nirvana, Green Day, Sublime, and Beck. I mean, that's doing pretty well at the time. Those were the bands that were up and comers doing really well.
It's also great for what their sound is.
Right. It's a perfect
It's
match.
a bar band, almost. It's like, it's not aesthetically pleasing to a lot of people that are going to show up at a Beck show.
Right. They decided to take a leap and organize a European tour. So they headed overseas in 1991, and they were excited that audiences knew their songs outside the US. It was a really big experience for them.
That's pretty big.
To have someone singing back their lyrics,
Yeah.
it was amazing. In 1992, the Gits independently released their debut album called Frenching the Bully, which sold well at their merch tables and the local record stores. So they may not have gotten this huge success, not hitting the charts and whatnot, but locally and at their shows, they were killing it. By June 1993, the Gits were finishing their second album, and Atlantic Records was about to sign them. It was a big deal. I mean, they were on the brink. The band was poised for their big national break, with their live shows drawing bigger crowds and a major label album on the horizon. In early July 1993, the Gits arrived back home in Seattle after another round of West Coast tour dates, but Mia seemed unhappy to be back in Seattle. Drummer Steve Moriarty recalls, quote, "She said for some reason, I don't want to be back in Seattle. I really have a bad feeling here." She was a really intuitive person, extremely intuitive.
I always wonder about when people say that, because you hear that a lot in cases. Oh, they just said they had a weird... I wonder how often that is true, because with this, it doesn't seem like she could have had any inkling. It's not like she'd had a fight with somebody, there was a thing, she had a bad vibe, right?
Or a stalker.
Something like
there
this.
was no real lead up to this, a random attack. So it does seem out of the ordinary to have a bad feeling.
I'm feeling badly for even saying it, but I'm just, sometimes people, I don't know maybe you don't know what to say, so you just say something.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple things that stand out to me. Is like maybe hindsight is 20/20, where you just kind of hone in on this one random conversation where it could have been about something completely different. Like maybe she felt like her car was about to be impounded or something, and she's just like, oh, I have a bad feeling, and when you look back on it, you're like, oh, this totally applies to her tragic death, but, or maybe it could be a thing where people genuinely feel that, where they know something is going to happen. They just don't know what it is,
Yeah.
But it's interesting to point out, he was very clear about it. He was like, she's very intuitive. She felt like something was wrong.
Yeah.
Something bad was going to happen. On Tuesday, July 6, 1993, Mia was at the Comet Tavern having drinks with some friends, including members of 7 Year Bitch. She was in a good mood after getting paid for a solo show in LA, and she was celebrating at the Comet since it was their local bar in the Capitol Hill area, very near the Rat House where they lived. Mia took off around midnight and said that she was going to a rehearsal space in an apartment building about a block away to look for her ex-boyfriend, Robert Jenkins. Mia was planning on confronting Robert, but he was actually with his new girlfriend that night, so she never found him.
I wish she'd found him.
Right, I know. I'd rather her be arguing with him,
Dragging some bitch by the hair. Who knows? Who cares? She's alive.
Right, just for her to be alive.
Yeah.
Mia decided to stop by a friend's apartment that happened to be in the same building, and she hung out there for a little while. At 2 a.m., she left her friend's apartment, saying she planned to take a cab home. It's unclear if she went straight to the taxi stand, if she tried to look for her ex again maybe, or possibly decided just to walk home. We really don't know what she did directly after leaving the apartment building. Because there is part of me that thinks, okay, she never found him, but maybe it's 2 a.m. and she's like, this motherfucker better be home. I'm going to try and find him, you know? Or if she was really bummed out, she's like, I'm not waiting for a taxi. I'm going to walk, you know? We just don't know.
I've always leaned to that it's like, I don't want to wait. I'm probably drunk.
Right.
And I've got all these feelings. I'm just going to walk the streets. I'm going to walk it off.
And it is kind of in their neighborhood. It's not that far of a walk.
She might run into him while she's walking home.
Right. So I'm on the same page with you. There is this part of me that's always thought that she didn't wait at the taxi stand and she tried to walk. And then that's when she was spotted just walking on the street.
Yeah.
A neighbor heard screams a short time later, but when they came outside to help, they didn't find anyone. Then around 3:20 a.m. on July 7th, 1993, a sex worker walking the Capitol Hill area called 911 to report an unresponsive woman lying on the ground on a quiet, empty street. Mia was found just over a mile from the Comet Tavern, only 2 miles from the recording studio, and about 3 miles away from where the witness reported hearing screams. First responders arrived and they attempted to resuscitate her, but Mia was pronounced dead at the scene. Mia's sweatshirt was pulled up, exposing her bare chest, and her hood was pulled tightly over her face. Then it was knotted underneath her throat. The killer had placed her wallet, underwear, and torn bra into the pocket of her jeans. A few hours later, the Gits were scheduled to have a recording session at a studio, but Mia never showed up. And since this was unlike Mia to just not show up for an important commitment, the band members knew something was wrong right away, and they began frantically calling around to find her.
I'm sure there's some band members that go out the night before, don't roll in on time. We just chalk it up to old Steve. But Mia, this is her whole world. This is all she does. And especially now, got back from the solo thing in LA. She's got money. She's psyched. She's making it to practice.
Yeah. By all accounts, you're right. It's like most musicians would not bat an eye to someone showing up late because that's very typical. But Mia was not that person. She was an artist. She was committed. She was a hustler. She was focused on being there and making her music. So it was a huge alarm bell going off right away when she didn't show up.
And also the other side of this is everyone knows where she is all the time.
All the time. Like, yeah, exactly. Everyone lives together. They work together. They're just rehearsing together every waking moment. So right away, they know something's wrong.
If she's not with the band, she's with a friend talking about her ex-Rob who she's going to go find right now. And she's going to go walk down this street and wave at Mike and talk to Tom. And, you know, everybody knows where she is, saw her here. Not normal for no one to have a clue. Where's Mia? I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you mean you don't know?
It's not only her bandmates, it's everybody else. It's such a tight-knit community of just these like 3 or 4 bands that are musicians locally. They're all just constantly together. So if they can't find her at rehearsal and there's a couple other people that don't know where she is, then it's scary right away. When nobody knew where she was and they figured out after calling a few friends that she was missing, they decided to start calling hospitals and the police station. Drummer Steve Moriarty says, quote, "Then somebody had the nerve to call the morgue. And the Emmy, who was a music fan and had seen the Gits, says, 'It's your singer. I'm sorry. You should get someone to come down and identify her.' It was a lifelong traumatic moment."
There's a Forensic Files, I think it is, about this. And the guy telling this anecdote about this case says, what are the odds?
Right.
Never heard of this. You'll never hear of this happening again, you know?
The medical examiner is just like, oh, I know this band. I know this singer. That's, I mean, how crazy is that?
Very.
And the fact that they would be calling, not just hospitals and police station, but actually call the morgue and get patched through to a medical examiner. I mean, that's just, the whole thing just blows my mind. But the Emmy especially used this chicken tattoo that she had on her leg to make a positive ID. Not only did they recognize her, but they knew, especially by the tattoo, that that was the identifying feature.
A big fan.
Yeah, I know. Later, the autopsy revealed 27-year-old Mia had been beaten, raped, then strangled to death with the cord of her Gits sweatshirt that she was wearing. It was determined that the cause of death was strangulation with the sweater drawstring, but the ME said that Mia would have died from the injuries to her internal organs even if she hadn't been strangled. The autopsy showed both vaginal and anal injuries, but no traces of semen were found. There were abrasions on her breasts that appeared to possibly be from teeth, so the ME decided to swab the area and they found saliva that could be used for a DNA match. The profile was run through the DNA database but yielded no results. So many friends in the music scene were brought in to provide samples for comparison.
I think it was just assumed that this has to be somebody in this scene.
Right. I mean, of course, we also, as people that are into true crime and know a lot about the process, everybody knows that it's someone close to you, right? Like the first thing we're doing is looking at everyone that's in her friendship circle, anybody she's dated. Those are our first prime suspects in any crime. And that's what they did. That's what the detectives did. That's what the people that were their friends did. They're all pointing fingers at each other. So they tried to rule everybody out or find a positive match using this saliva DNA sample. The only clues detectives had were the drawstring used as the murder weapon and the saliva sample. There was no other evidence. No fingerprints, no blood, nothing else that could even point detectives in the right direction to begin their investigation. Those were really their only two pieces of evidence. The detectives were under a lot of pressure to solve the case because Mia was locally famous, but they had absolutely zero leads and almost no evidence to go off of. The shocking murder was a dark cloud over Seattle's community of musicians. Everyone in the local music scene was afraid and paranoid, thinking that really this could have happened to any of them. Especially after they started ruling people out that were close to her, it felt like such a random attack that it could have been any of their friends.
And also you think about the last person that she had seen, she was saying, I'm going to go confront that rat bastard Robert Jenkins.
Right.
Right. And so now you're Robert Jenkins, shaking in your boots.
Absolutely.
You're like, take my saliva, please.
Yes, rule me out, number one, absolutely. Since there were no leads or prominent suspects, the community itself and the investigating detectives were pointing the finger at many people within the music community. The investigators were grasping at straws to find a suspect, and the musicians were looking around, wondering if one of their friends was actually the killer. The local musicians were all overwhelmed with fear and mistrust. Since there was no information, everyone felt unsafe and suspicious of people within their own community. After collecting many DNA samples and confirming numerous alibis, everyone in their local community was ruled out, including Mia's ex-boyfriend, Robert Jenkins. But during that time in between, it was extremely chaotic and emotional. Like I said, everybody was pointing fingers and thinking it's got to be one of us, just looking at each other suspiciously.
Yeah,
it was a really fucked up time.
It would definitely seem, especially because the rock and roll lifestyle, it'll kill you, right? I mean, everything that your parents, your grandma, the squares have told you, you're going to end living this, you know?
Yeah, I think that they were just sitting around thinking it's got to be one of us.
Yeah.
And just looking around at every single gig and watching, like, who's suspicious? Who did this one random thing one time that was forgettable at the time, but now I'm looking at it a little bit sideways, you know?
It's like Bomb City and Brian Dennehy. They've got
Yes.
tattoos. They've got mohawks. They must be trouble.
Right.
Right? So it's like, oh my God, wait, that's us. We're the trouble. Oh my God, we're trouble.
I'm sure that's what the detectives were thinking. We're just like, look at all these burnout little grunge people, you know, and thinking, well, it's got to be one of them in the scene, right? But if you're in the scene, you're sitting there like, these are my best friends. This is like my second family. You know, a lot of us moved out here and we're transplants. This is my family, you know, thinking it's got to be one of us.
I love they probably just like full flip the script, showed up the morning, next day, police station's open. We need to talk to you.
Right.
We have DNA to give you.
Yeah.
And just like
Turning in
shocked everyone.
all
They're
the
like,
samples.
what crime did you all just commit together? Like, no, we're here to solve a crime.
Yeah. They were all, perfect example. They were all committed to just giving as many samples and alibis and all the information because they wanted to solve it. Everybody wanted answers. Within a couple weeks, it became clear to Mia's loved ones that the detectives had no leads and the case was going cold. So they decided to organize fundraisers and benefit shows for the purpose of getting a private investigator. These shows featured artists like Nirvana, Soundgarden, Eddie Vedder, 7 Year Bitch, The Posies, and presidents of the United States of America. They all donated time, equipment, and performances to help the Gits find Mia's killer. The remaining 3 members of the Gits also brought in Joan Jett to do some live performances and an album released under the name of Evil Stig, which is Gits Live spelled backwards.
It wasn't a live album called Gits Live? Because that's how I've always read it. But it makes way more sense to me as Gits Live.
Yeah, the way that they've said it when they talk about it is Gits Live.
It just blew my mind right here.
They did live performances, but they did a studio album.
I know. That's why I was able to convince myself for the last however many years, over 15,
Gits Live.
that it's Gits Live. And I thought it was just some badass live album with Joan Jett.
But they did a ton of performances with her. They've got all these bands lined up to really trying to help. I mean, everybody was committed to getting the funds raised so that they could get a private investigator and really trace it down. You know, like they wanted to know exactly what happened.
The governor, you know, Eddie Vedder, he showed up.
Right?
He was there.
While processing their grief, Valerie Agnew from 7 Year Bitch and other friends formed an organization called Home Alive, which focused on educating women about self-defense. And Home Alive still exists today. Just FYI, side note, their website is not like super active and updated constantly, but it's still an organization that locally is putting on events and doing education and stuff like that.
Play the lottery with Jackpocket. What's Jackpocket? Jackpocket is the lottery app that lets you play New Jersey lottery games right on your phone. People have won over $5 million playing the lottery on Jackpocket. Download Jackpocket and get a free Mega Millions ticket using promo code CASH. Jackpocket. Play the New Jersey lottery on your phone. Must be 18 or older to play. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Please visit jackpocket.com/TOS for full terms of service.
Hi, welcome to Metro by T-Mobile.
Hi, my dad is in serious need of an upgrade.
Yeah, my phone's a fossil.
He needs a new phone and a new network stat.
Well, when he switches to Metro, he can get an amazing iPhone 7 with HD Retina display for just $99.99 after ID validation.
Wow, $99.99?
Bye-bye, Fossil.
Requires porting of eligible number not currently active on T-Mobile network or active on Metro in past 90 days. With validation of ID. An independent database limit 4 per account/household. 32 gigabyte model only. See store for details and terms and conditions.
In 1994, the Gits released a second album called Enter the Conquering Chicken, featuring the last recordings that Mia did and named after her affectionate nickname of Chicken. The Gits labelmate 7 Year Bitch released an album in 1994 and titled it Viva Zapata, with a painting of Mia on the cover as a tribute to her. A benefit album called Home Alive was released in 1996, featuring songs from artists like Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, Jello Biafra, Jim Carroll, Lydia Lunch, and the Posies.
And just nothing, just silence still.
Yeah, no answers.
We're in 96.
Right, years are going by. And that's the thing to really remember here is just like this horrible, horrific crime happened, this tragedy that ripped the community apart and really deeply heartbroke so many people. And now years are passing. They're putting on all these events. They're raising the money. They're hiring private detectives. And nothing is coming from it. No answers at all. Mia's loved ones had hoped that if they raised the money and kept her memory alive, they could help find leads and eventually solve the case. They brought in about $50,000 during their fundraising efforts, which would be about $86K today. I mean, it's a good chunk of change, and it all went directly to a private investigator. The PI that they hired, named Lee Heron, did a ton of digging and tried her best to find a suspect, but most of the information found was just general dirt on various people in their community. And from when people talk about it, they're like, oh yeah, I guess we found out that this person was kind of shitty. This person had a criminal background, but they didn't find anything that really pointed to someone having issues with violence against women or possibly attacking Mia or having any animosity towards her. Nothing that pointed in any direction of solving the murder.
Which, again, makes it the scariest possibility, which is a random attack. Like,
yes.
You want it to be someone you know around you.
Because it'll give you some answers, right?
Yes, there's less, oh my God, there was no reason for this.
Yeah, completely random.
That's the scariest thing of all.
The private investigator Lee believed that Mia was picked up in a car right after 2 a.m., then beaten, raped, strangled to death, and shoved out of the car on a vacant street. Lee was able to turn over her information to the police, but nothing pointed to a suspect. Even if they could trace back her steps, there really wasn't any leads that really came from it.
Thought from the files. She's wearing a Gits sweatshirt. So someone pulls over. A random person. They might recognize her. They might not. It's as simple as going, hey, you like the Gits? Hey, me too. You want to listen to some music? And she gets in the car. You know what I mean? I'll give you a ride. Where are you going? Block down the street? Sure, I'll take you there. Oh,
maybe.
I recognize you. This and that, right? It's so just random, and it just could be so simple. And this is another reason why it's like, this Home Alive thing is great. Self-defense, be aware, don't trust random strangers. It's also a different time period. And, you know, Seattle isn't like, it's a small town, big city.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, somebody could give you a ride to the end of the street. Right? And the fact that she's wearing their own sweatshirt has always made me question that.
Right. Maybe someone used that as a way in.
Or this random person that nobody knows in the community happened to be in one of these bars that night. And I was like, hey, that's the girl with the dreads from that show.
Right. I recognize her.
Yes.
She does a ton of gigs. A lot of people knew her just walking down the street.
She's about to take off. All she wants to do is talk about her band.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I'm completely speculating, but.
Right. At the time, it seems like a viable option that someone that had just, you know, even if it wasn't someone that was in their friendship circle, it could have been an outsider that was watching her from afar that was like, oh, that's the girl. And then, took that opportunity to hurt her.
They just watch her walk out on the sidewalk and just like look both ways and go, what am I going to do? And they just pull up and take advantage of that situation right there.
Yeah. You don't know. They're still, years later, just caught up in not knowing,
and
trying
the
to
fact
speculate.
That she's 3 miles away from where they heard her screaming. Obviously, somehow she's moved. There's a car involved. There's a vehicle.
Yes,
right?
That's one thing that you can conclusively say.
So, I don't know. It just adds up to me.
Yeah. So the case went cold for many years. The Gits and Mia's loved ones just held out hope that maybe someone would come forward and confess, or a random person who knew something might just come out of the woodwork and turn someone in. That was really all the hope that they had. Because there was no leads and really no hope of solving it, you've got to rely on other people, outsiders, kind of just having it on their conscience and realizing that they've got to take action.
Yeah.
Since there were no leads or evidence pointing to a suspect, there was little hope that Mia's killer would be brought to justice. After almost 10 years and no progress on the case, suddenly there was a major break in December 2002. The swabs of saliva from the crime scene were ran through the DNA database once more, and shockingly, there was a match. Jesus Mezquia was a Cuban who came to the U.S. in the 1980s when Fidel Castro exiled thousands of felons. Jesus had traffic citations in Seattle around the time of the murder, and it was later found that he lived only 3 blocks from where Mia's body was found. He would go on to commit a series of crimes such as sexual assault, robbery, kidnapping, domestic violence, and aggravated battery, which would result in his DNA being entered into the National DNA Database, CODIS. At the time that the match was made, Jesus was a married fisherman on probation and living in Florida Keys, so Seattle detectives traveled to Florida to do surveillance on him before bringing him in for questioning. Jesus calmly claimed that he did not know Mia, although he admitted that he was in Seattle at the time. When detectives began specifically questioning Jesus about whether he had raped and murdered Mia, he began to get upset. Jesus got angry and stood up and exclaimed that he was telling the truth. Although he wouldn't admit to anything, the forensics pointed to him, so he was arrested on January 10th, 2003, and charged with first-degree murder.
Another one. Snagged by CODIS.
Yes!
DNA.
Years later.
Kicking ass and taking names, man.
And this is back in 2002. So you're thinking, it's been almost 20 years. The advances that we've made, geez, it's only getting better and better.
And he was all the way out in Florida.
Yep.
He went as far away as he possibly could get. As far as he could get. He was in Florida.
Even in the Keys.
Yeah.
Not just Florida.
No
the
kidding.
Keys.
He was out there. It's just so crazy to me. I know it's not a sentence that does it justice, but wow.
Yeah. Across the entire country, across a decade of time, he was able to be matched to this crime.
Random attack.
It's amazing.
Ugh.
During the trial, prosecution relied heavily on the saliva DNA and bringing up Jesus's criminal record, while reminding the jury how kind and talented Mia was. Jesus's attorneys insisted that the DNA was contaminated at the crime scene by paramedics, while first responders were attempting to revive her, which just pisses me off. It's a Courtney thing where you're like, you're just insulting my intelligence. That's one of your lines. That's what I feel this is paramedics trying to revive her are not going to have Jesus's DNA. It's not like me giving you mouth to mouth is going to put Jesus's DNA on her breasts. That's crazy. Like, why would a lawyer try and use that argument?
And he's a minimum of 3 blocks away.
Right.
Like, what?
The defense also claimed that just because his saliva was present on her body did not prove that he had raped or killed Mia. They even claimed that Jesus's DNA wasn't even on Mia's body, and then they pointed the finger at Mia's ex-boyfriend.
Whose DNA was found nowhere.
Nowhere
Brought his
at
own
the crime
DNA
scene.
to them the day after the crime.
And they had tons of witnesses saying that she never even had contact with him that night. I mean, ugh. Jesus listened to the trial via translator, but he never spoke or took the stand in his own defense. In the middle of the trial, after the state had rested, a woman named Valentina De Secco came forward alleging that Jesus had also attacked her about 6 months after Mia was murdered. It's terrifying. Although, of course, they were only allegations, I've chosen to include the information provided by the accuser because I believe her. Just flat out, I'll say I believe her.
I do too. And I'm sure that being able to rape, annihilate a woman, murder, leave in the street, totally makes you think you can do it again.
Absolutely.
And get away with it.
You get bold. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
well, it happened. I got away with it. Nobody's coming after me. Wait a few months, lay low, and then try to attack someone again. I 100% believe her. Valentina chose not to file a report at the time, and there was no evidence that she could have really given to police. But when she saw Jesus's picture in the newspaper, she immediately recognized her attacker and contacted police. Valentina said that in January 1994, at around 4:30 a.m., she was leaving her apartment downtown in Seattle for an early morning jog when Jesus approached her. He knocked her to her knees and she felt pain in her throat. But thankfully, she was able to get back on her feet and escape. After waiting a while, Valentina returned to her apartment, but she saw that Jesus was standing at the corner outside her building, masturbating and staring at her.
I believe it 100%.
100%.
Yeah, all of it.
Even if it wasn't admissible in Mia's murder trial, it was very telling about the kind of monster that Mia's killer really was.
You don't just all of a sudden one day, murder someone on the street like this, like a random rape attack murder. I mean, there's a buildup, and then usually, this is how he probably kept the shit at bay.
Yeah.
And then she gets away. Now I go back to what I know.
And how many other people did he try this with that didn't see the article and never saw his picture? And of course, like Valentina, they were like, well, there's no evidence. I have no DNA on me. I just have this random awful thing that happened to me. What am I going to tell police? Why would I file a report? How many people did that happen to?
And also, women that jog, I'm worried for you. There's so many examples.
Yeah.
It is insane. When you really look at the statistics of women jogging, how many don't come home? It's just one more thing that's like, wait, what? You can't do that?
I know. One more thing that women are unsafe doing.
We may do a Patreon where I just break down jogging as a woman. Jogging while female.
While Murder Dictionary just takes this total anti-jogging
I know,
stance.
I hate it, but God, I don't run unless I'm being chased. But
Oh, no, I get it. I'm pro-elliptical because I feel like I could just be inside a gym. There's a ton of people there and nobody's going to murder me.
Well, recently I was like, hey, babe, I think I'm going to go hike. I'm going to go do a small hike by myself, just right here in the neighborhood. He's like, you're not going anywhere by yourself. He looked at me like I was telling him I had 5 eyes.
That's exactly why when I have gone on hikes by myself, I don't even tell my wife.
I can't tell anybody anything
Which
anymore.
is the worst thing you could do. I mean, I should tell people where I'm going,
Tell
but
me.
I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to go just walk around
You
by
have
myself.
to tell me, because if you don't come back by 3:02, I'm sounding the alarm.
Yeah, it's really scary. I mean, these are random attacks. And like you said, I mean, it is not that uncommon for some woman to try and just be going about her business, leaving her house, going on her jog, and someone attacks her. It's tragic. It's awful. And like I said, I mean, how many people were there that didn't report? We
Yeah.
don't know. We'll never know.
A lot of people don't know they were a victim of him because how many times was he looking through a window?
Right.
Creepy stuff
Standing
like that.
on a corner.
They don't
Yeah.
even know they were victimized by this person.
Yeah. He's clearly a monster. On March 25th, 2004, after a 2-week trial and 3 days of deliberation, the jury found Jesus Mezquia guilty. Judge Sharon Armstrong decided to sentence him more severely by giving him 37 years because of the horrific nature of the crime. Prosecutor Timothy Bradshaw says, quote, "It was very gratifying. The friends, family, and band members who were there in the courtroom, that's what they've been waiting to hear. But you realize when a measure of justice has been achieved, there's also this sadness that sets in. You realize that it's not going to bring her back."
That's a really heavy statement.
It's so sad.
It's so true.
This was the first case in the state of Washington to be solved solely by saliva DNA. Jesus filed an appeal, and his sentence was overturned in 2005. However, a judge later reinstated his original sentence. The Gits 2 albums fell out of print in the 90s, but were reissued with some unearthed songs in 2003. In 2005, a documentary called The Gits was released, which focused on Mia and the effect that the murder had on so many people.
Yeah.
And that's the story of Mia Zapata, the first case that Courtney and I ever talked about way back when we were still just acquaintances.
We looked at each other and in a room of people became the only two in the room.
Yes, everything just went tunnel vision.
Yeah.
There were true crime fireworks.
I remember just being like, I have known her for a long time now. And long enough that I should know this.
I should know that she knows about Mia Zapata.
Right? But the way I learned about it was so much better because it was so organic and so real, and just the memes that everyone posts in our groups everywhere that are like me standing in a room talking about serial killer facts looking like a dumbass, right? I found my dumbass. It was just amazing.
Your
I was
fellow
like,
dumbass.
we're in the room together. We're the meme. It was amazing. I was just like, this is it. This is my future.
And you know me, my memory is so bad. I mean, I could forget a case 2 seconds after I talk about it. It's kind of disturbing. People will be like, oh, remember this episode or
Nope.
this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, oh man, it's so bad. I don't remember. But Mia Zapata is a case that has always stuck with me. And you know how I am about music history and this era of music. So I guess maybe that's part of why I got attached enough to it to like really remember a lot of the details. But this one was one that from the first time I heard about it, it always stuck with me. And I remembered everything about the case.
Ditto.
Yeah.
Same. The moment I heard this. And I have a vague memory of before this was solved. Like not flyers, but the concerts.
Yes.
The fundraising, all that they did, the albums, all this stuff, the reissues. I remember all that through like punk community. It worked its way down here.
Yeah, before I really remember too much about the details, I remember hearing, oh, Joan Jett is performing with this random band that doesn't have a singer. Like, I remember those kind of things.
Exactly. And like,
I was like, what's Joan Jett doing?
Why don't they have a singer? But like, it never really more than that, because then I got to go to school, right? So it's
Right.
like, okay, we just continue. And then years later, and like probably one of the first episodes of Forensic Files I even remember with the everything is that specific one. And I think there's a New Detectives as well. And then there's YouTube all over. There's tons. great performance video, all that good stuff.
The documentary itself, even though it is, of course, a little bit dated now, I mean, you can tell what era a documentary is made in. And, like it's one of those things where you're like, oh, yeah, this is this year that it was made.
Yes.
But it's on Amazon Prime for free. And it really is a great documentary with a ton of great live footage, a lot of insight. And especially if you're someone that, people listen to true crime for various reasons. People watch the documentaries for various reasons. But as someone that's very much into psychology and what the victims and survivors are feeling and like what the family members go through and how this whole music scene was just cracked wide open and just devastated by this loss. I mean, those are the things. Those are the human stories, like what people are feeling and how people get through it, and how people survive and how people form these groups like Home Alive that focus on self-defense and stuff like that. I mean, those stories are what really captivates me. And this is one of those documentaries. The Gits documentary definitely focuses on the loved ones, on the people that really cared about her. And it's not really focused on the murderer at all. It's really, shines a spotlight on how many lives that Mia touched and the kind of difference that the community could make after her death, So I would highly recommend it.
Same. It's good.
Yeah.
I just know that the Gits YouTube rabbit hole is good. It's a good one.
Yeah.
Hours.
She really did sincerely have a fantastic voice. I mean,
yeah,
very, very special.
The performance angle to like the charisma, all of it. She just had it.
Yeah, although you could see that she's not 100% like comfortable with like banter on stage. She has one of those voices. You know what I mean?
It's not
like,
what she was there to do.
She's not here to talk.
No.
She's here to sing,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Whatever you can get of the Gits, get your hands on it.
It's good.
Highly recommend.
Okay.
So yeah, if you want to read more about them, we've got the links in the show notes. If you want to watch that documentary, I highly recommend it. Check out YouTube, check out Amazon Prime, look up the Gits, and you'll find everything you need. And what else? Court definitely wants you to check out our social media.
Yeah, absolutely. And I heard you say it this time for the first time, I think ever. I just started cracking up. I was like, oh my God, she says it.
You know what happened? I decided to lead with the social media and really just hone in on that eye contact with you.
All right, you say it. You say it. Fine.
So definitely check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We've got memes. We've got updates on episodes. We've got updates on, all the current events and cases that are in the news right now. Court's all over that.
There's so much going on.
So yeah, if you want to get some merch, check out our Threadless. I believe it's threadless.com/murder dictionary or something else, but the link is in the show notes. And our Patreon is patreon.com/murder dictionary podcast. So if you want bonus episodes, ad-free episodes, additional content, all that stuff, the good-ish is on Patreon. So we want to say thank you to the new people on our Patreon this week: Candace, Holly, Anna, Sabrina, and Casey.
Or Cassie.
Or Cassie.
We'll take you both.
You know what? Whoever's out there named Casey or Cassie, thank you.
Thank you.
To just Caseys and Cassies.
Thank you.
So thanks you guys for listening. Thank you for being on our Patreon. We really appreciate you. We really appreciate the support. And just, I don't know, I guess a side note, I appreciate people being really patient while I go through my health issues and we're a little bit inconsistent on release dates. I apologize profusely. I feel really bad, but as soon as I know what's going on, as soon as I have a surgery date, I'm gonna let you guys know. And until then, hopefully we'll still be able to release, regular episodes. No promises. I'm trying my best.
We know you have a choice when you listen to your true crime podcast.
And we are grateful if you make that choice to listen to us.
We are so grateful.
So
we want to say thank you. We want to say gracias por su paciencia as well. We want to say thank you to you for all your patience and understanding.
Yes.
We appreciate it all.
So we appreciate you listening to this episode. We'll have another episode about musicians and music next week. We're still on letter M. And that's pretty much it for us this time. You got any other announcements, Court?
We're on Facebook. No, that's it. That's all I got. That's it. Okay, everyone.
Have a great week, you guys. We'll see you next time. Thank you for listening and have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.
Play the lottery with Jackpocket. What's Jackpocket? Jackpocket is the lottery app that lets you play New Jersey lottery games right on your phone. People have won over $5 million playing the lottery on Jackpocket. Download Jackpocket and get a free Mega Millions ticket using promo code CASH. Jackpocket. Play the New Jersey lottery on your phone. Must be 18 or older to play. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Please visit jackpocket.com/TOS for full terms of service.
Hi, welcome to Metro by T-Mobile.
Hi, my dad is in serious need of an upgrade.
Yeah, my phone's a fossil.
He needs a new phone and a new network stat.
Well, when he switches to Metro, he can get an amazing iPhone 7 with HD Retina display for just $99.99 after ID validation.
Wow, $99.99?
Bye-bye, Fossil.
Requires porting of eligible number not currently active on T-Mobile network or active on Metro in past 90 days. With validation of ID. An independent database limit 4 per account/household. 32 gigabyte model only. See store for details and terms and conditions.